So let's talk about dairy now, alternative dairy production, which are labels like organic, or get certified humane is another one. And so there's still the same, again, just as with the chickens, just with all animal farming, there is the same inherent cruelties, again, that just they have to they have to use these procedures to be able to make the product profitable, to have a profitable product. If they didn't use these certain inherent things, inherent procedures that are so cruel, then they wouldn't be able to make a profit. And one of those is taking the babies away at birth. Another is artificial insemination. These cows, cows. It's of course this this common misconception that cows just give milk. Somehow cows are different from every other mammal for some reason. They just give milk. Well, that's of course not the case. Like any other mammal, the females only lactate when they are pregnant and have given birth. So they have to keep them pregnant to give birth to baby after baby after baby, way more than they would in nature. They're pregnant every year of their life. And that is very, very taxing on their bodies from the artificial insemination. Because of that intensity and because of the dirty conditions and crowded conditions, they get diseases, sicknesses that aren't treated. And of course, they go to a brutal slaughter at a very, very young age. So again, I went and looked at these dairy farms in my area. And, and this, of course, on the left here is what we want to believe is happening in alternative dairy and in humane dairy. We want to believe that the baby gets to stay with the mom and that they're out in some grass. And that is not reality. The reality is on the right here, where this little baby has been taken from her mom. And I know she's a female because she's being put in these calf hutches. And I mean, you can see she's so frightened. She's wet with her birth fluid. I mean, she is still wet with birth fluid. She's been taken from her mom at birth. She is being put in with the other females on the other side of the dairy in these calf hutches that are kind of like dog houses, basically. So they're separated from their mom. They're separated from each other. So when I did my investigation and went up to these organic dairy farms, it's very different than the chicken farms. It's very different because chickens are very hard to hide. Chickens are tiny and you only have to keep them in one location and just collect the eggs, right? So, or slaughter them for their flesh. So they're easy to hide. They keep them in a building until the day they go to slaughter. Cows are harder to hide. They're very big, big animals, and they have to move them from barn to barn, from thing to thing. So from one barn, from a holding pen to where they milk them, to different areas, right? So you see the cows. So they can't hide them. They can't just say, keep out, don't come in here. So instead, what you see all these humane labels, or these, feel good labels, right? Environmentally certified organic, everything's fine on this farm, nothing wrong, nothing to see here, nothing going on here. But then when I would walk up and get closer, here's some more of the labels and signs that I would see. You see these all up and down the roads out in West County of Sonoma County. This is often what you see first. You see these rows and rows of calf hutches, okay? And these calf hutches, every time you see one of these, you know that a baby has been taken from her mother at birth and is being chained up and, confined in these calf hutches. And it breaks my heart because not only is it, frightening and confusing for the baby, but it's psychologically traumatizing for the mom as well to have these babies taken away. So it's just one of the worst things. And no matter the label, anytime I saw certified humane, organic, whatever, you walk up, you see these these calf hutches, so you know the babies have been taken. Now, one time I went to one of these dairies and they were giving a tour, right? They were giving a tour. They called it farm trails, I think. And yeah, you were able to go to the farm for one day. And this was the scene that they showed us actually on a dairy, was this little calf, and she had some straw, and this was set inside the barn, but there was very little room for any others. So you know that they kind of had just set this up for us because all the others were outside. So she had some shade. It was a very hot summer day, and but it was interesting because people started fawning over her and just, oh, isn't she so sweet? And she would suckle our hands and our fingers, because she was so wanting to suckle her mother's udder. But it just broke my heart that two things. One, that she had that tag in her ear, that awful tag that shows that, they are commodified, that these animals are just objects. They're a number, not a name, not a someone, but a something. And that she was separated from her mom and from other calves and from being outside and being able to frolic and play. I mean, they were showing, oh, look, she's got straw and she's so healthy and taken care of. But the reality is that no, she's alone, she's sad, she's frightened without her mom. It's yeah, you have to know what's going on to be able to see past what they're showing you. Right. All right. So this is some of the other pictures that I took just from my investigations. These were ones when I just walked up and it wasn't what they showed me, right? It wasn't a tour, but it was just me going to see what was going on. And I would see animals in muck up to their knees in manure. There were lots of other pictures that didn't come out as well, unfortunately. But this one on the right, I just want to point this out, that this little calf there is likely a male, because he was not taken over to where the females are with the hutches, right, to be raised for dairy. They're of course put in those calf hutches to be bottle fed. They never drink their mom's milk. They're bottle fed, the females, until they're old enough to be artificially inseminated for the first time. But this, I believe, to be a little male, because he was curled up all alone. They had separated him from his mom and just kind of thrown him out in this paddock. And he was probably awaiting a transport truck that would take him to slaughter, either veal or beef to be slaughtered. So, the dairy industry, once again, the males are a byproduct. The males are unneeded, and they just, are thrown away, go to slaughter, just like the males in the chicken industry. Oh, this mama cow, bless her heart. She was it's hard to tell within this picture, but that back left leg in the back there with all the mud on it was so swollen. It was swollen like 2 or 3 times her other feet. And she was limping terribly on it, just really limping. She was in a lot of pain, and she'd take like 2 steps and then stop, and then take 2 steps and stop. I wished I could have taken video. Again, it was, 15 years ago, so I didn't have good video. But this, you go out, you still see this. Unfortunately, it's harder to get these images now. We need the undercover investigators, but of course they find all this stuff. So let's see. All right. So I want to talk about this romanticized notion of getting the animals out to pasture, right? There's this kind of just romance and nostalgia and good feelings around this notion of getting the animals out in the paddock, in the pasture. As long as we get them out of the confinement barns, then all the issues are solved, right? All the problems will be solved. And this has really become kind of a narrative, I think, that the industry is spinning. And it's not the case. These animals are not wild animals. They are domesticated animals. They need our care. We have manipulated them so much that we now have to really be involved in their welfare and their care for them to be comfortable. And they're not wild animals. You can't just throw them out into a field and think everything's going to be fine. There are many issues that they can face. Sometimes they can suffer even worse when they're out on pasture. So putting animals out to pasture, there's a lot. It's very complicated. It's very complex. And there was this really wonderful study. It was called The Animal Welfare and Production Challenges Associated with Pastured Pig Systems. And it really, really underscored the just myriad of problems that face pastured animals and free-ranging animals, right? It was a meta-analysis. It looked at numerous different studies from 2000 to 2020, so 20 years of peer-reviewed studies and other accounts. And it found that pigs had, that often, in these pastured situations, pigs have exposure to extreme temperatures, heat stress. They're not able to get adequate shade. The lighter colored pigs, the little pink pigs, could suffer from sunburn, blistering. And then in the winter, in extreme cold, they'd sometimes have frostbite. They'd get hypothermia, pneumonia. They were more vulnerable to predators being out there. They had more contact with wildlife, so there were more pathogens, parasites, viruses, just really awful stuff, right? And there was more complexity in monitoring all the animals. When they're indoors, it's much easier to monitor them and their illnesses and sicknesses and what medications they may need. So much harder when they're out on pasture. So it really went into a lot. And actually, the study is cited and talked about in the first chapter of the book, The Humane Hoax. In that chapter, I talked about a pig called Silver. Ingrid Taylor goes into great detail about this really fascinating study. So it's in the book. And, and that paper didn't even go into like transportation, slaughter. So, there's so much that they face. And so just getting the animals out to pasture is, it doesn't make everything, all humane and okay. And then, of course, environmentally, it can be horrible too. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. Yeah. So, okay. So we are going to move on actually to the greenwashing section, but just to wrap up the humane washing, I really encourage you to not disconnect from the emotional reality of the violence that is inherent in animal farming and killing an animal for her flesh, for her eggs, because in eggs and dairy, they go to slaughter at a very young age as well. And again, that's that inherent cruelty part that they just can't circumvent because they need the product to be profitable. So I just encourage you to remember that no matter how the animal was raised, no matter what the label is, animal farming can never be consistent with being compassionate or kind or ethical.